All right, welcome to the Scotty P Podcast. I'm here with Yeppie Tomasian, the Armenian assassin. And dude, we met, well, I've seen you on a lot of Instagram videos originally training with Mason Fowler.
Yeah.
Seemed like you were like one of his main training partners maybe, or at least the one he wanted to demonstrate with.
Yeah, I was over there for about 3 years, 2019 through 2021. And after the pandemic, life happened, took a turn, and I went to Colorado for about a year, came here, but training with him was really fun. Training with all those guys was awesome. Learned a ton, and I got to be in his instructionals, which was really cool. But I learned tons about like knee cutting, how to be more athletic. But yeah, that was good.
Yeah, and then I saw you at ADCC Denver, and I said hello to you, and that's when we started to actually talk and become friends.
Yeah.
And you took gold
Yep.
that day at ADCC Denver.
That was cool. Did you watch me get choked out in the second round of my weight division?
Oh, no, I didn't.
So, first round was cool. I got the win. Second round of my weight division, went up against Brailer from Legion, and I was feeling good. I went for a throw. He countered it and he put in a darce and just strangled me. And I was like, I'm going to get out. I'm going to get out. I was practicing this defense. Didn't work. And I just woke up on the floor. It sucked. So I was like, dang. Oh no, I lost. And I was thinking about doing the consolation bracket. And then the way that tournament was running, it was kind of interesting because they were running the open simultaneous to the weight division.
Right.
So it was like, at one point I had to make a decision. In the moment was like, am I going to do the open or am I going to do the weight division? Because they were going to DQ me from the weight class. And a couple other competitors got DQ'd, which is interesting. But I decided to opt for the open. And I ended up winning the open, which was really cool. Match after match, I was just heating up. I was getting a couple of big throws, a couple of trips, a couple submissions, and then I won it. It was really cool. And then I think I met you at the John Hansen seminar too.
Right. Yeah.
That was cool.
For a little bit. Yeah. So you got put to sleep.
You went out. Yeah, I was.
And then you went on to win the open, the absolute division.
Yeah, he killed me. Yeah, I was dead. And then woke up. I think while I was asleep, I had a word with the Lord. It was just like, I gotta do this. Get back in the absolute and do it.
Dude, that is wild. And Brailer Grout has a world-class darce, so
he's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a few other matches at trials. The last West Coast trials, he beat me by a point. That was tough. We fought again in San Diego, and I was up on points, and he throws this Hail Mary darce from the bottom of side control, and I just felt so embarrassed, so humiliated. But that guy's really good.
Yeah.
He's very active. He's also a really nice guy. So love that dude.
I met him at Eddie Bravo Invitational qualifier. So I know him as well. Yep. Nice and mean darce. And then since Denver, I saw you post and go to Armenia, and you told me that was the first time you've been back to your home country. I'd like for you to tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So my dad is Armenian. My mom is not. She's American. So growing up, we were away from the Armenian family. My family's from Fresno. There's a little area in Fresno where all the Armenians are. So growing up, I grew up thinking, for about 18 years, I knew I was Armenian, but I grew up as an American. So my entire life, essentially, as a kid, I felt like I was an American. And as I got more into grappling and I started seeing more Armenian athletes, I was like, oh yeah, I'm Armenian. Really, what does that really mean? So I started, doing more research on my own family. I'm a third generation Armenian from Western Armenia, from the village of Mush, which is now a Turkish village, but it's called by the same name. So getting more in touch with my Armenian heritage has been very meaningful, very inspirational. And during quarantine, during the COVID pandemic, there was some conflicts on the border. It was a really unfortunate thing that happened. I won't really get into it, but if you want to look it up, you can. And so during that time, I met this man by the name of Andre from Armenia. He has a gym in Yerevan, Legacy BJJ. I don't know if you've heard of Legacy. There's an affiliate, or the HQ is in SoCal in LA.
Okay, I do know.
Yeah. So Alberto Crane is the owner of that association. And so Andre was living in LA for a while, and he moved back to Armenia, opened up a school. And so he became one of the AJP tour organizers for different tournaments, different events. And he hosted the first international jiu-jitsu tournament in history in Armenia. And he posted about it. And me and him had been talking online for a while. He was like, if you ever come out, you could come stay with me. I'll show you around the country. So I always knew I kind of had an invite there. And I always knew I was going to take him up on it. I just didn't know when that was going to be. And so when I won Denver Open, he kind of announced around the same time that this tournament was going to be held. And I saw that and I was like, okay, I have to go for that, And so I did a fundraiser with rash guards. We sold about 75 rash guards, and we raised about $4,000 for the national competition team there. And so we donated all that money to them so that they could travel to compete at the Abu Dhabi World Pro. And that was really cool. But some of the funds from other seminars that I did also allowed me to go there for the tournament. Went there, met him at his gym. All the people there are so nice. I love them. They're like my family. I miss them so much. I want to go back as soon as I can. But while we were there, the first week was leading up to the tournament. We just trained every day. And mind you, while I was doing this fundraiser, I was also planning my move to Austin. So when I moved down to Austin, it was about 3 weeks before the tournament. And my first day training at Austin, I injured my MCL, like really bad. Someone had a single leg on me and I was standing up. He kind of torqued it a weird direction. And I just felt like my knee open up, and it injured me pretty good. So I had to drop out of the Dallas Open, the ADCC Dallas Open, the one that Luke won. So that one was really unfortunate. But when I went to Armenia the first week leading up to it, I couldn't really train. So I was going into this tournament with like no training. It was at altitude, which I was used to with Denver, but I had been 3 weeks in Austin already. So I was like really nervous. I didn't know what to expect. As you could imagine, the competition level wasn't as high over there as it is here. But I had a few matches. I ended up winning, becoming one of the first of a handful of people as a national Armenian champion. I'm a brown belt, so I compete in the brown belt professional division, but there were a few black belts there, a few other children, adults, and so it was just a really good time going there. The second week, we went to all the different cathedrals, and on the last day I was there, I was baptized at the cathedral Horvira, and that was really cool. It was very special. That was the church that the very first national christening of a country took place. So I don't know if you know this, but Armenia is the first Christian nation in the world. Oh, no. And at this church, St. Gregory was kind of imprisoned for 13 years under the church. We went down into this cellar. It was amazing. But after the 14 years, he comes up, and the king of Armenia at the time had him baptize the country to be the first Christian nation. So I got baptized in that same cathedral. So it was very meaningful, very special. And we go outside, and there's a river between Mount Ararat, the Arax River, and that was the river that my grandmother was named after. So it's very special to see that. And I think there's a branch river that comes off of that. Or I'm sorry, that river comes from, the Euphrates, and that's the river that my grandfather is named after. So going back a few generations of my Armenian family, John Poloyan came in 1917 to America and had 5 daughters, named one of them Arax, and she met another Armenian who's named Euphrates, and then they had my parents, and then my parents had me. So a long ways away from Armenia, but that trip was just really meaningful because I was also the first of my family to go back since the genocide. So there's like all of this stuff coming together for me, really overwhelming, really emotional. And it was just amazing, very inspiring. And coming back, I felt like I had a different purpose with my jiu-jitsu. There was more reason for me to compete other than myself. And that's kind of what has been keeping me going recently. I want to compete. One of my goals is to become the first black belt Armenian world champion in either IBJJF or ADCC. If I don't get it, cool. I would just like to inspire the next generation of Armenians, but also just people in general, because I can't walk around saying I'm full Armenian, because I'm not. My mom is American.
Yeah.
So I still have to represent America in that sense. So yeah, that was my trip. It was amazing. And now we're back here. When I got to Austin after that trip, I was welcomed by Sean Jade Six Blades here at this academy. And ever since then, it's just been like back to that routine of just grinding every day, training really hard with Victor, Philippe, Arash, Steve, and Shanji, just getting ready for all these major tournaments. But for me, it was more like getting back to the fundamentals of my jiu-jitsu. I have a lot of these things that work well. I have a lot of experience doing arm locks. I have a lot of experience with like trips, some wrestling. I have a lot of these like nuanced things that work in particular situations, in particular rule sets. But what I was kind of lacking were bits and pieces of fundamentals for defense. And so going back to the fundamentals has been really, paramount to my recent development as an athlete. With recent tournaments, I noticed that my defense has gone up while my offense hasn't necessarily like gotten better or changed much. So I'm like falling back to this newfound skill level of my defense, and I notice I'm not exposing myself as much. And so with that, it's given me the confidence that, I can keep training, I can keep progressing, and eventually I'll be right there with all these other high-level athletes. And so with that, I signed up for the ADCC Austin Open. Lost in my second round. I got my guard passed, and I turned to the turtle, and it was 1 second too late. Lost 3-0 on that one. But
was that against Zarita from New Wave?
Zarita, is that how you pronounce his name?
I thought so.
I think he's
it's like big dude with a beard. Bald.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or Ezekiel is his name.
Yeah.
Was my second round. Yeah.
Ezekiel Sarita.
He's very strong.
Yeah.
Very strong. Very nice guy. It was really cool going with him. I had a really tight heel hook. I thought I was going to get the tap. I felt like his knee, I felt his foot and ankle pop like a lot. And I talked to him after the match, and he was like, yeah, you popped my leg and like damaged it, but I was up on points. I was about to win. So I was like, whatever. And I'm like, you're a savage for that,
Yeah.
After that, I was kind of upset, but I felt not so upset that I lost by points and it wasn't really a submission. My first round of the weight class, I got a submission. So I kind of recouped, watched my teammates a little bit, came back in the open. It was very reminiscent of Denver, losing in the second round, trying to recollect myself and get back out there. For me, I've noticed, I don't know how it is for other athletes, but for me, like getting into that zone where you're just focused on you and your opponent and the jiu-jitsu that's happening in between has been one of the more difficult parts of my competition experience. But I was able to get into the zone again, and every match as it progressed, I submitted the first round, submitted the second round, third round, fourth round against Abe. I was just trying to be aggressive from the start, and I was able to get him in the reverse close guard. Yeah, he has a move. He calls the Abe lock. I think a lot of us are aware of that. He does this like grip where he comes over the heel. I think he grabs the toes. I might be like butchering it. And then he reinforces that grip to where it's almost like applying leverage, kind of like a heel hook at the same time as a toe hold. I didn't know that grip. I just knew it was like reverse close guard, grab the foot and break it. So I found an opportunity to invert, shoot through to the close guard. We were sitting there for about a minute and a half, which was very funny because that reverse close guard position is hilarious. You're just sitting there. So I knew the points period was about to be active, so I rolled to my side so that if he were to come up in this exchange, it wouldn't be 2 points. So I went down to the side. He came up, but his feet uncrossed. And when that happened, I was able to bring it to the front. I started to, get the toe hold grip. and was able to kind of break the foot a little bit, and he tapped, and that was cool. And I was like really excited, got a little emotional, and did my whole yell or whatever. But what's cool for me in the grand scheme of things, winning Denver, winning the Austin Open, obviously my goals aren't to just keep winning the Opens. Like, you could win 6 absolute Open titles and like no one really cares. The real wins that matter are the majors and the finals of the majors, and those are my goals. So winning these things are great for me as far as like confidence as well as building my brand. But for me, the difference between Denver and now is the level of my training and going out there and performing and feeling the confidence in my performance and application of it. The win didn't feel as satisfying or meaningful. Like, it was meaningful, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the excitement of that win was a little less. So that tells me that I'm on the right path to, my goals of just winning more major tournaments and things like that. So
heck yeah. So in Denver, it was trippy because in the second round, you got put to sleep, right? And then you make it back and win gold. And then in Austin, it ends up being just as wild, right? So you lose in the second one, you come back in the finals, you're able to get Abe with his specialty move, which is trippy. And Abe's a beast. I would not want to go against him in a tournament.
He's very technical, very aggressive.
Yeah, trains at New Wave. He's like a jacked Wolverine. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, very jacked.
Yeah, and he's on the come up. I expect him to be. The both of you could be at ADCC in 2026 for sure.
Well, didn't he just beat Wagner?
He just beat Wagner, and Wagner has shown how hard he is to beat. So
yeah,
he's still competing at a world-class level. So the fact that Abe can get that win says a lot. But then in Austin, though, it's like you finally get to like, because you could argue that winning the Austin is probably like the most prestigious Open to win, right? This is the most densely populated, talented area in the country right now. So you won the biggest absolute division, but then they don't have a medal for you. It's like you finally get it, and then they're like,
they're like, we'll send it in the mail. And I'm like, cool. Makes me feel good, right? Like, damn, sucks.
Yeah, man. Man. It's like, well, did you guys not, isn't there like a certain amount of divisions with a certain amount of people that are going to win? Right.
Right. So, like the logistics of it.
Right.
How did they give away all the medals?
Might have something against Armenia, maybe. I don't know.
Let's not get into that. Yeah, we don't want to have like, we don't want to start that.
Man, so, well, you won the Austin, didn't get a gold medal, but it's not about the gold medals, right? It's about the experience. You're trying to get the real gold medal, which is the West Coast Trials gold, which is coming up in March.
Yep.
So I'm assuming you're preparing for that.
I am.
And are you going to do the Opens leading up? I know they got the one in California and then the one at Atlantic City.
I might do the Long Beach Open. I'm scheduling some seminars out there, so I hope to do that one. Atlantic City, maybe not. I'm also, one thing I haven't really done in a while is compete in the gi. I've done an Open in Sacramento recently, and I won that. But before getting into all this ADCC training, which kind of started when I was in California, training with Mason, I have a lot more experience training no-gi with ADCC rule sets than I do in the gi, but I'm actually also very passionate about the gi. I just don't have as much time spent in the gi. So that was one of my reasons for accepting the invitation to train here, because, as you know, Victor Hugo is the current double gold black belt world champion. But that was one of my reasons for coming here, because I want to get into the gi again, and I want to win a world championship in the gi. That would be like super meaningful to me, because when I started, I was really inspired by just the idea of martial arts, the traditions, the values, wearing the gi, putting a uniform on, tying the belt, teaching kids, and all that sort of thing. So I'm really happy with doing that. And so I'll probably be gearing up for more gi tournaments. I think Pans is coming up. A couple of Opens are coming up before the World Championships and things like that.
I would say you're one of the top brown belt competitors. And man, so I want to talk about this because we had brought up about belts. You know, we were just talking about like how belts don't really matter because if you compete at ADCC Open, there's going to be savage blue, purples, browns, and blacks.
Yeah.
And you can't underestimate anybody.
Yeah, in both the the Denver and the Austin Absolute, in my semifinals match, I was fighting like a teenage blue belt.
Yeah.
And they just like smoked everybody.
Yep.
The one that I fought in the semifinals in Denver, I think his last name's Henry. I can't remember his first name. Henry Zachary, maybe is his name. He just won the world championships at blue belt, like this past week or past 2 weekends ago. So that dude's a stud. He trains at Assembly. And then another boy named Legend. I don't know how old he is. He's either 15 or 16, but I fought him in the semifinals and he's very tricky. He was like entering into the leg entanglements as like adult advanced competitors would, like brown and black belts. It was really interesting to see that. So to your point, these tournaments are interesting in the fact that any belt rank, any skill level can jump into the advance and win it.
Right.
It's crazy.
You know, I asked you how long you've been a brown belt for, and you said 5 years.
I've been a brown belt for a long time.
Yeah, and then you just switched to this gym, so you know, just by the principle of how business and jiu-jitsu works, they're not going to promote you anytime soon. They're going to make sure you earn it. So it's like, and I know I'm really close, and so it's like it's just that funny thing where it's like, you know, the belts really, it's like, obviously we all want the black belt. We all want the next belt. If, you know, it's like gratifying to the work that you've put in, but in the end, it doesn't really mean anything because there are purple belts that train a new way that would absolutely smoke me. You would smoke me. It's like, and I, you know, so if it's like I get my black belt and then here's you still training at brown, winning like these major tournaments. It's like.
We see a lot of good examples of well-seasoned brown belts of all different gyms.
Right.
Doing well. So it's hard to argue whether someone should get promoted at a certain time or like what that means as far as a competitor.
Right.
For me, I think beyond being a competitor, the meaning of a belt is more to do with like the values that you uphold, you know, as a person, right? Owning an academy, teaching people below you, it sets an example or a standard of behavior, you know, modeling and exemplifying character and those values. So on the other end of competition, I know that my competition lifespan may go the next 3 to 5 years as a professional, and then it's going to end. So what's going to come after that? For me, it's also about building on the side, like, you know, my character, my values, and associating myself with people who stand true to those martial arts values.
Right.
And to really like to open an academy would be another goal or dream of mine. So it's kind of a weird conversation to have, right? When it comes to teaching and competition as a brown or a black belt. I've definitely been a brown belt for a long time, but as that translates to skill, I don't know. I'm not the one to make the call. Well,
yeah, like I said, the belts don't really translate to skill because if it was skill, then yeah, you'd definitely be a black belt like that. There's no doubt in that. But in the sense of like building when you tie the belts to a value system, like those are, you know, eternal and always changing based on the person of the journey. So it's like,
yeah,
you know, that
for sure.
To me, it seems like that makes more sense because then, you know, obviously a 16 or 17-year-old blue belt, right? Their skills might be that of a black belt, but not their development of character, not the journey that they've been through. Even though they might have been training for like 8-10 years, still there's like a whole nother experience to be had as an adult.
And that's interesting watching like ADCC, no-gi grappling, and jiu-jitsu, like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and how they're starting to separate in that sense. You could be like a really high-level athlete as like you said, as a blue belt, but it almost seems now that it has nothing to do with like martial arts. It's becoming this like unique thing of its own. Like
Right.
when I compete in ADCC, I actually feel a little different than when I'm competing IBJJF.
Right, that makes sense.
When I go into ADCC, I'm like, no rules. We're fighting. When I first started a long time ago, like 11 years, I was training MMA. Doing I was an amateur. I was going to fight in Bellator, but I ended up not doing that fight. So a lot of my jiu-jitsu for like the first 6 years of my training was more for MMA. So when I get into the ADCC rules and it's like, there's no scoring in the first 3 minutes. It's like, oh, well, what's the goal? Submit your opponent, like break their willpower, take them down, throw them, just crush them. And so that really allows me to kind of tap into that like fight, that fighting spirit, if you will.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting doing that. I'm like, oh, why don't I do that in this other realm, so I really appreciate the rule set of ADCC. And that might be why I excel in those rule sets too.
So you're saying it's like more of a sport, right? It's
very much a sport for sure.
Instead of the martial art. Because, in the martial art, it would be like you get this more sense of respect, and then there's more tactics because of the points. Yeah. It's not so aggressive. Like, one of my matches, we went right off the mats into like the stand that was holding up the lights and everything. And in my mind, I was like, I'll keep going. I'll put him into this table. I was like, I need these points. That's what everyone wants
to see, right?
Yeah.
That's what all the highlights are of.
And they ended up stopping us sooner than some of. I literally got a recording. They were duking it out like on the concrete next to me, and the dude wasn't stopping them.
Yeah.
I was like, this is just wild. And so when I was in the position, we were in overtime. And I needed those points. I did not want to lose, and so I was just like, I was holding them, and they were like stopping us, and I was like, I'll keep going. And
think about how many like later stage sequences are missed because of inbound limitations, right? You step out of bounds in one tournament during a really nice sequence. It's like, even as a fan, I'm like, oh, what would that have led to? Right. And so it cuts it off a little bit. So we get to really see the full, and then going off the mats too into like TVs and stuff. It adds like a WWE element to it.
Yeah. Alex Grandy, you know him, purple belt. He's one of the 10th Planet guy. He's made it to the finals of the trials multiple times.
Nice.
For under 99 kilograms.
Yes. Well, he was just at East Coast Trials in the finals, right?
Yep, he was just at the East Coast Trials finals. And at the East Coast Trials, he literally picked someone up and put him through a table. And it's because the dude was standing straight up. And one of the things you learn in ADCC is you should never stand straight up because people are looking for that. And Alex, man, he's tricky because he looks like he's just going to be a brute, but he's like sneaky. So he's just like, boom, and just
very
launches
dexterous.
You. Yeah.
Very athletic.
So one of the things you learn at ADCC is like, dude, you have to be dialed in on the stand-up. Like,
yes.
I never take a break on this. If we're standing, I'm crouched very low to the ground with my hands up.
Yeah. In Denver, the first round of Absolute, this guy walks just straight up with his hands up. And I'm like, hesitant. I'm like, what's he about to do? What's he doing? And then he literally just walks up and puts his hands on me. And the video that's pinned, it like went viral on my Instagram as like too many views. I just like threw him like legs overhead. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's what you get for standing straight up.
Oh, dang, I got it.
I mean, if it wasn't him, it'd be me.
100%.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, anytime I've blast doubled someone and it's gone like viral, and it's like, one, he was laughing at me. He was like trying to mock me a little bit. So
oh no.
Because I was just like doing head movement. I've been playing with the idea of head movement a lot.
Yeah.
Because big guys, we don't really move our head a lot. But the Ruotolo, someone had brought to my attention that they're like masters of head fakes. And so I was just watching them. I was like, man, I need to throw some more head fakes in. So I kind of do it to one of these guys, and he just like mocked me a little bit. He's like, ooh. And I was just like, okay. And I just blast doubled him. And it's like that same mindset. It's like, if I don't do it to him, he would have done it to me. So
they might be watching your head movement, but their stance, their body, their reaction isn't prepared for, what you're about to do.
Right.
You fake one thing and boom, you hit them.
Yeah. And so, man, so we talked quite a bit at the Austin Open. We were in line at the weigh-ins, and you said that you were really interested in the psychological aspect of competing. You said you didn't really see a lot of content about that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. But like essentially what we were talking about in that moment was just this whole idea of how like where jiu-jitsu is at in its current state, where the professionals are still paying to be a part of the sport. So it's like, here are these guys that are at the pinnacle of the sport, and they're still in the heat of the grind. Like they're not, they haven't made it. Whereas any other professional athlete of any other sport is like, what you brought up was that they're being paid to do all these things. Whereas you had to pay
to participate in the tournaments. Yeah, that was, I heard that conversation on John Wellborn's podcast, Power Athlete Radio. He was talking with Victor Hugo about that. He was talking to another guest on the podcast saying how he's like the best in the world, and he's still paying registration fee to go there. He's still paying the travel fee to go there and compete. And it's like, he's the best of the best.
Yeah.
He's the best in the world, the champion of the world, two-time champion of the world. And he's paying to be there. And how, inside of that too, there's no like healthcare. He's got to provide all that for himself. Mm-hmm. He's paying for his training. He's doing this and so like obviously he'll have sponsors or other endorsements to help him out with that, but that's all stuff he's doing on his own. Where in any other major sport, you're seeing a lot of financial benefit to these athletes. Like they're getting supported by the league that they're training in. And it could be that jiu-jitsu is more in its infantile stage now, and it might grow into something like that, but perhaps without the conversations to be had, it just won't get there. It's forever we're going to pay hundreds of dollars to compete for that $5 medal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and the content that comes from it.
Right. Well, it seems like the younger athletes are getting that opportunity. It seems like the Rotolos have been doing some podcasts recently, and they were saying how they've been paid really well since they were like 12 years old or something like that. It's through sponsors, right? So still not being paid from the organization itself, which is mind blowing because
you think that could be like the network of like Atos, maybe their coaches, they know people who are willing to support these young athletes.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it was Atos specifically. I think it was their dad, because I don't think they trained at Atos when they were that young. But their dad was already a black belt. So I'm sure he already knew people in the business. So
it's just people that he knew that were willing to support.
Could have been very well, right? Like he probably already knew people in the industry. But they were also in a different situation, right? Because they're both homeschooled and their whole entire lives have been shifted, like directed towards jiu-jitsu. So but it does seem like that's becoming a possibility where you could be a full-time athlete making money off, not necessarily the league itself, which I guess you could at ADCC, right? Like ADCC, if you win the trials, you're essentially going to be able to make enough money to compete for ADCC.
Yeah.
Just not at IBJJF, which is the mecca of jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And they make enough money to pay the athletes.
100%. Like you're seeing these Grand Prix starting up and it's like, oh, where'd that come from kind of thing. I'm excited to see it and I'd like to see where both of these things keep going. But definitely true about ADCC. You win a couple opens and now you're doing seminars, right?
Right.
From my experience.
Yeah.
You win trials. It's like winning trials is not easy. Mm-hmm. You're going to have like very experienced guys every single round.
Right.
Even if you're the number one seed, like it's going to be tough.
Yeah, if you're the number one seed, your first match probably gonna be tough because the first guy you're going against already got warm. Right? Because they're gonna give you the top 6 seeds get a bye, or the top 3 to 4 seeds get a bye.
Yeah.
So then you're essentially gonna go against the guy who already got a warm up match in.
Yep.
Most likely, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it's always tough for the high rated seeds. And then
it's just chaos. I think Mo posted yesterday that the 77 kilogram already has like 60 people signed up or something.
Jesus.
And it's going to cap at like 250 or 260.
There will probably be multiple divisions that cap out, right? Like 256. 256 is the max.
Yeah. It's insane. And that was like a day or two after it was live.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. I don't even want to know how many 99 kilograms there's going to be.
Do you think eventually there's going to be like a tournament between trials and worlds?
So from now, like they'll start entering like another trials for people to do?
I don't know.
Oh, because they're running out of...
there's just so many people doing it.
Yeah.
Or it's really just going to, the demand of earning that spot in the tournament will kind of like develop the skill within the pool of athletes.
Yeah. I mean, if it keeps getting bigger like that, you might even have to earn points in an open in order to go to trials like IBJJF does, which is trippy to think about. That would
probably make the most sense. Yeah. But again, I'm not an organizer of events.
Yeah.
I just like to compete.
Well, you can see it, right? If it caps out and at this rate every 2 years, if it gets bigger, they could definitely be in a situation where it sells out in the first like couple weeks, and then you still got all these competitors who are still trying to get it done.
Yeah.
So that'd be really interesting. Man, I'm excited for trials. I'm gonna be there.
Yeah.
So man, it's really shaping up to be something awesome. I'm gonna compete at trials too, so I'll be
Nice.
there. I'll see you. I'm not gonna do Long Beach or Atlantic. Man, the traveling really kicks my ass. So I think I'll probably just stay local, compete as many times as I can, and then I'll definitely make it out to the trials in March.
Nice.
But yeah, I can definitely tell it's going to shape up to be something amazing.
Yeah.
And it's so funny too. Is like if you were there in did you get to go see ADCC 2022?
I did.
You were there?
Yeah.
Oh man, we didn't know each other.
Yeah.
I was beat bopping around there for sure. But it's like you could feel it. You could feel that there is like, no, this thing is going to be insane. And so like that's why I made the commitment to do so many this year.
Yeah.
I was going to try to do all of them, but
the crowd was insane.
Yeah. Oh
like
yeah.
The way the crowd, you could tell where like, you know, the crowd from Brazil was. You could tell where the crowd from the international scene was. And then you could tell where the little pockets of fans or teammates of different athletes or teams were. And the way they would just interact, it was almost like a live action meme. Like someone would say something like a meme, they would say the words that were to a meme or something, and everyone would just laugh.
Yeah.
So it was like a unique atmosphere. I loved it. I loved being there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I was like up in the nosebleeds recording Joe Rogan. And I was like, let's look if I zoom in on 8.
And then before the finals, everyone had like their phones out and they were waving them.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
Yeah, and then I just had Haisam Rita on, and when he armbarred Cyborg, like everyone was losing.
I was freaking out. That was really cool.
Yeah, so
he's like, "Are you not entertained?"
Yeah,
let's go.
Yeah, he said that was like the greatest high he's ever had. And I was like, dude, I was high with you. Dude.
Yeah, I know. Everybody was. That was so cool. Oh man.
But yeah, so like I said, you can really feel that 2024 is going to be something big. It's going to be at T-Mobile Arena. I'm super stoked to make it out there. And then they'll probably have the Open again, right? And then so even that in itself is a big deal. You get to compete on the same in the same stadium that the best in the world are competing at.
Yes.
So that's going to be super dope. I'll definitely be in that. So yeah, man. I don't want to take up too much of your time. We're going to get ready for this open mat that I'm super stoked to be a part of. But I do want to ask you a couple advice questions. So,
sure.
You know, the theme of this podcast, right, is, you know, being a warrior, obviously jiu-jitsu, because that's what most of us do. And then just like motivational, right? So what would be your advice? So like, in my mind, you've really like broken through that like competition, like you don't go to local nagas anymore. You ain't worried about going to the new breeds or the grappling industries. You're above that. So for maybe a competitive or someone or a purple belt or a brown belt trying to be more competitive in those scenes, right? Maybe they want to do a little better at trials or they want to try to win some matches at opens. What would you have for them since you already won two and do really well?
A few things. Yeah. I mean, number one, what are the reasons for why you're competing? I think when I first started as a competitor, it was like watching these individuals rise to the occasion and all the attention that they got as an individual. And so I would like put on a pedestal being an individual who has the ability to do this amazing thing, you know, kind of like all about me. It was just kind of a selfish motivation, which I think we all see a really good competitor and think like, yeah, I'd want to go experience what it's like to be a champion and really dominant. For me personally, that motivation was kind of fleeting. It didn't really last when I would like have a big loss or just I would fail at a tournament or even in training, day-to-day training. But after like recent years, as I was getting to know more about myself and my family, my heritage, my Armenian background, and really, really valuing the opportunities I had to teach and help others, to show kids like just jiu-jitsu, to give them confidence. That really motivated me to represent that whole lifestyle and all of those values on the competition mat. So with that motivation, it didn't really translate to anything different on the competition mats, but what it did for me was allowed me to get up every day, you know, every morning and go train, get up and train with the same enthusiasm, effort, and motivation on competition training, whether I'm training with our athletes or I'm just training with individuals. My goals for training changed from how can I become better in training to how can I better develop my skills. And so what that did was it changed my perspective from look at this exciting thing that's happening in competition, how can I emulate that, to what are these people actually doing that's preventing them from losing? that then gives them the opportunity to perform these spectacular things. And one thing I realized recently in my like defense, like I was talking about, if I can prevent someone from passing my guard, I'm going to have confidence to start attacking a lot more. Whereas if I have this really good, like unique guard attack and it doesn't work and somebody starts to pass, that's going to debilitate me. It's going to discourage me. I'm going to, get crushed and maybe give up. And so I think some advice I would have for some people who wanted to get to a higher level of competition is try to reduce the elements of competition until they emulate your training environment. Because ultimately, when you go out onto the mat and you're competing, there's nothing different between what you do on the competition mat and what you do with your team, right? I go out there, yeah, there's people yelling and people with cameras and lights or whatever, but after I shake your hand and I grab you, like, what's really different about that jiu-jitsu than the jiu-jitsu that's happening every day on the mats? Maybe it's the skill level, maybe it's the intensity level, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's the same. So if you can put more effort and emphasis on what you do in the training room and you develop a high degree of skill there, it's going to give you more confidence, and that confidence will give you motivation. That confidence will give you inspiration, and that's going to keep you going. And when you go out into the competition mat, you're going to perform in that same way. And I think in that moment of applying yourself at that level that you've developed in the training room, then you're gonna find this newfound confidence. And if you couple that with reasons beyond yourself, right? I'm gonna compete for my team, or I'm gonna compete for like a fundraiser, or I'm gonna compete to set an example for another generation of students or athletes, then you're easily gonna be able to find more motivation to train and compete at a higher level. And that was something really difficult. Something I always noticed too about myself was when I watched high-level athletes as a lower belt, the feeling and the excitement that it gave me is what I used to train. And when I looked at these videos, I'm like feeling like the intensity of that moment. But as I have grown and as I've competed at higher levels, I'm realizing that the experience I have is not as excited as the experience that let's see, how do I say this? When I watched higher level athletes compete as a lower belt, I'm like, oh, look how intense that is. And the feeling I had was the feeling I believed that they were feeling, if that makes sense.
No, I know what you're talking about.
And so now that I'm competing at a higher level, it's not that at all. It's not this like really exciting, fiery motivation. Like I get into my flow state, if you will, and it's very precise. It's very aggressive when it needs to be, but it's not really like fueled by this ego of wanting to be the best individual athlete. It's very exciting because all of that is fleeting anyways,
Yeah.
All of the athletes who sell themselves that they're the best and they know exactly what to do at every single time. It's like, yeah, that'll work as long as you're winning, and eventually it won't, and then whatever. And then the next athletes will come, and it's kind of this cycle. So for me, I think if you find something true to yourself that motivates you, that's beyond yourself, I say lean into that. And it will come with initial frustration and failure. You might have to focus on your defense. You might have to focus on different warm-ups, different pre-fight rituals, pre-training competition rituals. And it might come with initial frustrations and failure, but as you grow and break through to that, you're only growing into a more honest version of yourself as an athlete. Whereas if you try to emulate something you see, it's not really gonna last very long. So
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's one of the fundamentals that they teach you in the Marine Corps is, right, it's not about any Marine himself, it's about the Marines together. And anytime you're doing something for someone else, it's a much bigger driving force than doing something for yourself. You won't even know, like, because it's really hard to hold yourself to such a high standard, and it just, it'll drop with your motivation level and what you got going on, and you'll give yourself breaks and you don't even know that you're doing that. You don't even realize that there's a cap on how hard you're willing to push yourself. But when you put someone else in that equation, so it's like you said, you want to be an inspiration to children or other athletes, right? That makes you want to be like, you want to have no faults. You realize that nothing you say is an excuse, because you know that anything that they say is not an excuse. So you're willing to hold yourself to that higher standard. When you know that the Marine to the right and left of you are suffering and they're not saying anything, you're not going to be the one to say something. You know what I mean? You're going to be like, if they can suffer in silence, I will suffer in silence. If they can carry on, I can carry on.
Yeah.
Kind of mentality. And you'll be surprised just how much further you can go when other people are your source of motivation.
And that's a good point. I think moving yourself to a new environment where people have no slack for like poor performance or for being lazy. And like you said, sometimes we're doing things out of habit that we just don't really know. Like maybe we are waking up late, or maybe we're not putting the extra effort into prep our meals, or we're not doing the extra diligence of stretching or resting or making sure we're hydrated, doing all these things, studying film, what have you. And I think moving yourself to an environment with a team of people who want to support you to be the best version of yourself is also another thing that you could do as a younger athlete. I know going from one state to another, from one team to another, my eyes open to the fact that you could be on a team with a really high level of skill and success, and none of them are going to be willing to help you at all. In fact, they'll be using you and taking everything from you in order to make themselves better. And you won't realize that until you have nothing, right? And then moving yourself to an environment where people want to help you, it's just going to be as equally debilitating, because you're going to have to be putting your best effort in every single day. And it may not, give you the success you're looking for right away. But if you realize that you're in an environment where people have your best intentions in mind, or want to support the best version of yourself that's within you, that maybe you aren't currently now, I think that's a really important thing to look at for yourself as an athlete. If your goals are only to teach and train and not to compete, that's a different story. But if you want to be one of the best athletes that you can be, or something completely different is to be one of the best athletes ever, you're going to have to get around people who are doing those things. Right. And it's going to take you giving up probably 95 to 100% of who you think you are and your habits in order to even start making progress towards that. And that was one of the biggest eye-openers for me. Very, very humbling in the past couple of years, realizing like, it doesn't really matter what you've done up until this point, because you haven't done the thing that you're looking to do. So you're literally going to have to stop doing everything you think is working for you to start getting towards that goal of yours, and really start putting in more effort towards these things. So I'm really happy with where I'm at. And I encourage people to, be more honest with themselves as athletes, competitors. Like what are those things that are in your life? Are the people that are in your life helping you? Are the habits that you have helping you? Are the things you're eating? And beyond that, the things you're consuming. Like if you go on your Instagram right now, how much time do you actually have spent looking at your Instagram? Like, or how much time do you have just trying to look the part of a high level competitor, the things that you say, whatever. Really take a look at everything that you are and what you're doing from a day-to-day basis. Write it all out if you need to, and then start picking and pulling from that list as you compare it to someone who's actually competing and being successful and doing the things you want to do. Because I can guarantee that to be great at anything, it's a very, very like standard operating procedure. Every day you wake up, you make your bed. You make
an SOP is what we used to call them in the Corps. Standard operating procedure.
And what's funny, you said you're a Marine. Thank you for your service. That was something that my dad had always instilled into me when I was younger. My dad left my life when I was 13. He was a recon Marine in Vietnam, and he worked with special operations for about 4.5 years in country. And that was pretty crazy. I didn't really know what that meant until I was 18 either. But some of the things he would just say is like, always prep the night before. Better to be pissed on than pissed off. And just like all these funny things, like clean up as you go.
Those are classics.
It's just so funny. And his routine every day, he would get up early. He would get his bag. He would always be cleaning. He would always be prepared for whatever was to come. And I think leaning back into just having what some people would consider like a boring life is actually what's going to give you the power and fortitude to bear those difficult moments of training every day and not being successful, getting crushed on the mats every single day. And you're going to learn that over time, if you're willing to lean into that, you're going to be able to sacrifice your ego along the way and realize that this is the path forward to strengthen you. Because it's not about it. I think real strength comes in how much you can load onto yourself in your day-to-day life.
Like Atlas.
Yeah.
Right? Carrying the world on his back.
Yeah. Picking up the heaviest stone you can and bearing that burden.
Yeah, bearing the weight. One last thing I want to say about what you were saying is so funny, right? That idea of how much philosophy is on the mats. Because what you just said can be applied to any discipline. And like earlier you're talking about the process of becoming a better athlete. And like to me, it sounded so much of like what you need to do spiritually if you want to be better spiritually. Like the idea of if you want to be a better athlete, you have to let go of the things that got you to where you're at, because in order to get to the new spot requires a whole different you. Same thing as spirituality is like the old you cannot become the new you. You have to shed what you think is your identity. You know, it's like the classic spiritual saying is that spirituality is an unlearning, not a learning.
Yep.
Right? Learning who you're not.
It's like a reduction.
Yes.
Of elements of yourself.
Right. So it's just so funny, right? So you're applying it to becoming a better athlete, and that same process applies to spirituality. Same thing of how you're saying that you need a way for you to level up your jiu-jitsu technique or your conditioning is you got to put yourself in the shoes of someone that you want to be like and back engineer, what is it that they're doing? What are they not doing that you're doing, right? The same thing, you apply that to any skill set. If you see someone that you want to be like, you need to back engineer the things that they're doing and also what they're not doing.
Yep.
Anyway,
I think we all know like stoicism. We all know philosophy. We all see it on Instagram. I think the difference in Ryan Holiday, I think, said it well. He was like, the difference between a philosopher and like a paper philosopher or a pen and ink philosopher is someone who takes the words and they find what it means for themselves, and then they act on the belief of what that means in their personal life. And through that process, it's going to change them. But I think not a lot of people know what it looks like to take a self-inventory, because that's a scary thing to do. I think Jordan illustrated it well, was like, we're like natural organisms, right? If you consider us like trees, we're made of wood. As we're growing, things we're adding to ourselves, inspiration, motivation, skills, people, what we eat, what we consume, we're growing, right, into these people, these athletes. How much of what you're consuming is of value that is not corrupting your being, and there's like a process, right, in blacksmithing. You put the metal into the fire, and if there's any impurities in that metal, they're gonna fall off. And a hard part about applying yourself to a new discipline or a new philosophy is putting yourself in that fire. Because some people, when they put themselves in the fire, they find out that like all of who they are is like really poor habits, really bad character. And that's a really scary process. So, put yourself in the fire at your own discretion, but it's definitely a powerful process. I encourage people to do it in small increments, because the last thing you want to do is look at yourself and hate everything about yourself and want to give up. But if you could do that and transform yourself and continue with your discipline to keep training, keep going towards those goals, and whatever you do, like you said, on and off the mats, I think that's only going to make you a better person spiritually.
Yeah.
So,
man, baby steps. Baby steps are important, man. I tried to train someone the other day, and they're like, trying to just bite off a whole bunch more than they can chew. Like I try to make it super simple, and then they're like, well, what about if we do this and we do that? And then they ended up canceling the whole thing, and I was just like,
I saw this on Instagram.
yeah, you got to start off incrementally, or you'll discourage yourself from ever even doing it.
Yep.
But anyways, mind blowing podcast.
Yeah.
Yeppie, I appreciate you coming on, dude.
Thanks.
Thank you guys for tuning in. The Armenian Assassin. See you guys later.
Later.
Thank you, bro.